The Senate passes debt limit fast-track plan as lawmakers race to prevent a potentially catastrophic default. This comes as the State Department launches a review of its role in the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. A growing mental health crisis, especially among teens. A new report found U.S. emergency room visits for suicide attempts by adolescent girls surged 51% in early 2021 compared to the same period in 2019. And we sat down with Master Certified Life Coach Sue Bowles and Dr. Sandra Kumper-Boynton, Executive Director at NAMI Broward County, to find out tips for dealing with anxiety, depression, and low self-esteem. Tune in to Deep Dive as we explore these topics and more. Hello and welcome. This is Deep Dive and I'm Tiffany Meier. Let's begin with an update on the debt limit. The Senate passed a bill Thursday evening that's expected to avert a potentially catastrophic default on the national debt. On a final vote of 59-35, the bill establishes a fast-track process that will allow Democrats to raise the federal debt limit on their own. Lawmakers had been racing the clock to meet the December 15th deadline. Next, the bill goes to President Biden's desk for his signature. With that, Senate Democrats would be able to increase the debt limit on their own with just a simple majority of 51 votes. 14 Senate Republicans broke a filibuster to advance the debt limit process Thursday, breaking weeks of partisan deadlock on the issue. And the State Department is taking a closer look at the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. Secretary of State Antony Blinken announced on Friday that the department has started a review of how the military withdrawal was executed. Blinken says the review will focus on the Trump administration's last year and the first 9 months of the Biden administration. He hopes there might be some lessons learned to provide recommendations in the future. The Pentagon is also conducting its own withdrawal review, looking at the specific period of January 2020 to August 2021. And on the heels of the Afghanistan withdrawal, America's top spy agency is reportedly changing how it trains its operatives. Sources say the CIA is moving away from the counter-terrorism wars that have been the focus for the last 20 years. Instead, the agency says it will focus more on adversaries like China and Russia. They believe the change could allow the agency to add staff to outposts seen as critical to the China mission, as well as hire more Mandarin speakers and invest in new technology. The new policy gives CIA's so-called mission centers more control over the assignments and other training that an operations officer receives over the long term. The policy is similar to how the agency managed its young officers before the counterterrorism wars, when the CIA made certain intelligence moves to collect information on other countries. And here in the U.S., a growing mental health crisis, especially among teens. A new report found U.S. emergency room visits for suicide attempts by adolescent girls surged 51% in early 2021 compared to the same period in 2019. For guys, the jump was a 4% increase. Surgeon General Dr. Vivek Murthy warning of a devastating mental health crisis among the country's youth. He pointed to social media and pop culture as part of the issue, saying it, quote, erode their sense of self-worth. And we sat down with Master Certified Life Coach Sue Bowles and Dr. Sandra Kumper-Boynton, Executive Director at NAMI Broward County, to find out tips for dealing with anxiety, depression, and low self-esteem. Thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you here on the show.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate that.
Thank you for having me, Tiffany.
So there's a new report out on rising self-harm among teen girls, and there are reports that globally 1 in 3 women and girls experience either sexual violence or physical violence, and there can be a lot of hopelessness in that situation. So what would be some tips for maintaining some mental health in that kind of situation?
And that's such a critical question, because anytime you have something like that, it is a trauma, and trauma rewires the brain. So you won't be thinking clearly, and having some tools in your toolbox, should you come across a situation, is very helpful. I think one thing that can really help to kind of manage that situation, as dreadful as it is simply to have that support system. As you continue just in your everyday to build relationships, so that if you're in a situation, you have a trusted person you can go to and share the most intimate trauma that you may be experiencing. Knowing you have a place to be safe is the first step, because when you're in a situation where there's been some kind of assault, some kind of abuse, the first thing you feel is unsafe. That's why we have that fight or flight syndrome, because we want to protect ourselves. So we need a place to be safe. And the more we can do outside of a trauma, outside of an emergency, to continue to nurture places and people where we feel safe is the first and foremost thing, because those are the people, those are the places that we're going to go to when we have an emergency.
And so in those situations, there can be that sense of hopelessness. So what would be some ways of building up a feeling of hope when it seems so dark?
Nothing happens without hope. None of us dare to reach out or dare to ask for help if we don't have some sliver of hope shining somewhere that we want to try to fan into a flame. Having said that, though, there is a great deal of feeling of hopelessness because we feel stuck. We're not seeing things happen. We're not getting the progress that we want to see happen. And how to combat that hopelessness, it's a very daring step. It is at times a gut-wrenching, petrifying step. And it's simply picking up the phone. And I say simple, but it's not easy. And I understand that, because when we pick up that phone and reach out for help, be it to a life coach or to a counselor or to a recovery organization or some kind of trauma-based organization there to help you, even the Red Cross or the firemen or whatever the situation is, when we reach out for help and we say, I can't do this and I need help, that scares the daylights out of anybody, because we're risking rejection. And if we risk that rejection and unfortunately have that experience, then that compounds that sense of hopelessness. But that first step has to happen, because nothing else can happen. No one else knows that you're hurting until you say something. Dare to believe that you are worth it, and you are worth the risk, and your health and your well-being and your life is worth the risk, because there are people out there who care. And they want to help, but they don't know you are there to help until you reach out.
So in terms of depression, some have mentioned some people kind of end up in a rut. So what would be some ways of building up that resilience so people don't end up in that situation?
Exercise is really great. If you're feeling out of sorts, exercising is good. Your diet is extremely important. You're making sure that you're not binging on the comfort food that will come from wanting to get out of that depressive state. So it's good to try to eat as healthy as you possibly can, because you don't really want to just delve into the comfort foods, the chocolates, all the things that make us feel good. So exercise, diet is important, but most importantly, it is talking with somebody, speaking with a friend, a family member, a counselor, a church pastor, whoever, somebody who you have that kind of confidence in, to tell them exactly what's going on. If you can pinpoint the issues that's happening, if you can identify that I can't sleep, I am having restless nights, I am having thoughts that are disturbing. If you can identify that, talk with somebody. Make that be the primary thing you do to reach out, because hopefully that person can help to direct you, or to just be a solid constant to you to help you through this stage.
And any last words of advice?
I think the biggest thing is just realize at the same time that you have something to offer. Even if you are struggling, you have something to offer other people. My company name is My Step Ahead, and the concept is that you only have to be a step ahead to help the person behind you. While you're still reaching out for help, you can still reach back and help the person who's struggling with something maybe you struggled with last week and found a way to come through. And I think if we all continue to look at that, then realize that I may not have much, but I got something to offer. That goes a long way to helping everybody start getting out of this rut that we're all in, and this fear, because then we start believing that we matter, And when we believe that we matter, then we start taking more steps. And then before we know it, we're building that resilience. We're building that courage so that if the situation comes up where we have to reach out for ourselves, we already have that base that I matter and I'm worth making that phone call. And I know I matter because I was able to help this guy, because I took the courage to reach out to help them, even though I was still struggling myself. So that'd be my overall encouragement and challenge to everybody, is to dare to believe that you matter and that you can make a difference in someone else's life now, even as you're struggling.
I just really want to say again that talking about mental health, it's nothing to be ashamed about. We have seen so many people in so many different sectors who have come out and talked about it. And if you or somebody else is experiencing any kind of feeling of mental challenges, please feel free to talk to somebody. You would be surprised how many people are wanting to talk about mental health. And if you open up because you're experiencing these challenges, you will be helping somebody else to open up because they too might be experiencing these challenges. The Christmas holiday seasons are very, very distressful for a number of people. And this is a time when we need to reach out and be our brother's keepers.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Wonderful having you both on the show.
Thank you, Tiffany. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
And now, before we end, Google has released its year-end search lists for 2021. In 2020, coronavirus predictably topped the trending search list globally and dominated much of the U.S. list. This year, the top trending global searches focused on sports, with sports searches making up 8 of the top 10. World Cup cricket matches ruled the list. The NBA ranked number 4 and topped the U.S. list. The late rapper DMX and the Korean Netflix show Squid Game also made the global and U.S. lists. In the U.S., politics and finance also made the top 10. They included the Georgia Senate race, which decided control of the Senate and government stimulus payments. And as for the next year, for the first time, Pantone has mixed up a brand new hue for its color of the year. The official color of 2022 is called Very Peri, a dynamic periwinkle blue with a violet-red undertone. You'll start seeing it in a range of Microsoft apps like PowerPoint, Teams, Windows, and in digital screensavers. Since the year 2000, Pantone's team of design experts study trends in art and fashion to select a color that highlights top global trends. Very Peri is a color they say that symbolizes the future, with a nod towards innovation and change. But what do you think? Let me know below. Thanks for tuning into Deep Dive. I'm Tiffany Meier, and have a wonderful weekend.